Hello, and welcome to a tutorial on how to enter contract reports using Persimmony. First thing we do is go to the Persimmony database with the URL persimmony.com/first5.santaclara, and we're prompted to enter our username and password. Our username is usually our first and last name, and our default password is #12345 little a, big A, $, asterisk. But after we log in, I would recommend changing that password so that you don't have to remember such a complicated phrase. We want to move on to enter our reports. We'll go to the Santa Clara client icon, and Persimmony will take just a few seconds to load the screen. At this point, we'll be able to see our options of what information we want to enter. At the bottom left of the screen, we'll see a default program. If you only have access to one program, then you don't have to worry about it. But some of you may have to enter reports for multiple programs, and you can toggle back and forth between programs down in the default program area. I only have access to the training program here, so that will stay selected. I see a lot of blue space on my screen. That means parts of Persimmony have been deactivated because they don't apply to me. But the buttons I do see are Info Desk, Performance Measures, Reports, and Exit. So not too many, which means we can keep things simple. If you see these buttons in addition to other information, that means that your user account is linked to other aspects of Persimmony. But the information that we review in these buttons will still hold true. Most of our reports will be entered under performance measures, so I'll go ahead and click there. Here I see, for 2018-19, a list of rows that each correspond to a different group, which is report type. I see one group for the PSR, program narrative, success story, CSR, or contract status report, and program dashboard. So in this tutorial, I'll be reviewing individually how to complete all of these reports. So I'll start with the PSR. The program statistics report is the same as the one that your program has completed in the past if you actually do a PSR. I see that the PSR is due quarterly, which is why there are 4 rows at the bottom of the screen after I select it. Please enter the appropriate PSR for the appropriate quarter. So if I'm entering my Q1 PSR, I would like to enter it into the first row under aggregate data. If I click aggregate data, I'll be then prompted to add a new PSR. From here, I will select manual because I'm manually entering the information, and then I can continue to enter the information for my PSR. I will give it a name. It's very descriptive and unique, like PSR quarter 1. And there I'll see that these fields match the PSR that that were previously done in Excel. So this all should look the same. I enter the number of children and number of parents that were served in that quarter. And then I continue and indicate the ethnicities of these children and parents. Now, similarly to before, I need to make sure that the breakdown of ethnicities ultimately adds up to the number of clients at the top. So Persimmony will add them for me, and they stop turning red, which means Persimmony is happy with the way these are adding up. I can add as many languages and ethnicities as I need to, but if there's only one, then I only need to enter one row. The field for special needs is asking how many children who were served with a special need, and this is data that we report to the state. Please let me know if you need a definition of what special needs means in this case. The last field for the PSR is the zip code, And again, you would enter as many zip codes as is needed for the clients that were served. Again, these numbers do need to match up with what's entered as the total number of clients served. So once all these fields are complete in my PSR, all I need to do is hit exit and it will save automatically. I know there's information entered because my aggregate data button now is green, which means there's something in here. If I were to click on it again, I'll see the entry I just made and all my information was saved. And my PSR is complete for that quarter. Next quarter, I'll come back and enter one for quarter two, for the second row of aggregate data. And by the end of the year, all 4 of these buttons should be green. If you need to submit an attachment for any reason, you can use this doc button here. This will allow you to attach a document or PDF if I need to. That's all there is to entering a PSR. So again, you would repeat that every quarter. The next type of report we'll review is the program narrative. To complete the program narrative, I'll need to enter information for each of these 4 rows. These 4 rows make up the questions that go in the program narrative. So I'll start with the first one, which asks for 1 to 3 notable successes. Again, since this report is submitted quarterly, I have 4 rows to enter for the whole year. So I'll start off by entering information for my Q1 program narrative. And this information is going to go in the period narrative button because these responses are all narrative. So after I click period narrative, that's where I can type. I recommend that you enter this information in a Word doc version of the program narrative and then copy paste it into Persimmony. So I just entered information for the first question of the program narrative. And now let me move on to the second one and repeat what I did. I clicked on the question of the program narrative. I found the quarter that I was entering for, quarter 1. I went to period narrative and I copy pasted my information from the Word doc, or I typed it directly into this box, answering the question, and then I hit exit. That's all there is to it. Again, I know that it's saved correctly because the period narrative button turned green, which tells me there's information in here. I have 2 questions left for the program narrative. I click on the next one, number 3. I find my period narrative button. There's already an example in here, and again I hit exit. So once I do this for all 4 questions, then my job is complete, and that's all I need to do for the program narrative. Again, if I have an attachment that I'd like to include, I can enter it into the doc button, and the doc allows me to upload anything I want to share and attach it to this program. Our next type of report is the success story. Similar to the program narrative, the success story is made up of several questions, all of which are narrative. And again, I would recommend entering the information first in a Word doc and then moving it over into Persimmony. So similarly to the program narrative, I'll click on each question. So let's start with the first one. Find the appropriate quarter I'm entering for, and put that information into the period narrative. Once that's in there, I hit exit and move on to the next question. It's quite simple and it can move quickly once you get the hang of it. So I repeat that process again for each question of the success story. I want to point out that number 8 of the success story asks for a video or a photo as an option to submit with the success story. And you are able to upload photos in the doc, but if you have a videos to submit, Persimmony will not allow a video upload, so that will need to be sent to First 5 separately. Once I complete each question of the success story, then my job is done. The next type of report I'd like to review is the contract status report, or the CSR. Now the CSR is a update on each task or milestone from your scope of work. So when you log into Persimmony and you are entering a CSR, this language will match exactly the language of the scope of work for your program. In this test training program, we have a generic CSR with some common tasks or milestones, and yours will likely look different. But let's go ahead with this example. In this CSR, the first task is listed here: hire and maintain culturally, linguistically appropriate and qualified staff, etc. And I want to respond to this task by saying, yes, my program achieved that this first 6 months, because the CSR is submitted twice a year instead of quarterly. And that's why at the bottom of the page, there are only 2 rows of responses instead of 4, like there were for the success story. So I'm entering for Q1 and I want to say, yes, that happened. So I click yes. And then all I need to do from there is just move on to the next task that I'm responding to. Next, asks about a program manager. And that's when I click my response, and let's say this one is no, I clicked it already. This one's already filled out, but I'm still reviewing it so you see the steps. And then I just go individually for each task and indicate whether it was achieved or not achieved. Now, some of your tasks will actually not be achieved, not achieved. They might be a number. So let's move on to one of those. Number 5A is regarding the number of volunteers recruited. And as you can see, the yes, no buttons went away, and there's just a column for actual. In this case, the target for my program was 40, which should match what's in my scope of work. And the actual button is where I enter the data. And let's say that's exactly how much I submitted. And that's all there is to do for entering for a task that asks for a number instead of it achieved, not achieved. But then I keep going until I respond to each one of the tasks in my CSR. So it is just a series of clicking on the task, responding, clicking on the next task until you're all done. Now you might want to offer some explanation for a response. So let's see. For this one, conduct all FEAC related evaluation in accordance to Exhibit C. And let's say that's a no, we were not able to achieve that for whatever reason, and I want to offer an explanation. I can go into the period narrative and type an explanation or narrative regarding this one task. It's optional, not required, but if you want to offer some narrative along with the achieve, not achieve, or response to the task, you can do so in the period narrative. And again, you can use the doc button to upload any attachments when needed. Again, you would just go back and forth for each task until all tasks have a response listed in the appropriate row. I'm entering into the first row because in this example, I'm entering data for the first 6 months of the year, July to December. So these are my Q1 and 2 CSR. And then at the end of the fiscal year, I'll come back and for the same rows, complete the second row at the bottom here. Now, the last type of report that we enter into the performance measures are the program dashboard. And these are a series of indicators that your program might need to submit to First 5. And usually they're just numbers. Not all programs will be submitting the program dashboard, but for those that are, just like the other performance measures, we click on the row of the program dashboard, which is usually quarterly. I enter the actual, and then I continue on and do this over and over until the rows are complete. Once they're complete, your job is done and you can hit exit. Every time you hit exit in Persimmony, your information will be stored. So you don't have to worry about any information going away. For example, if I go back into my performance measures, I can see everything that I have already entered. These period narrative buttons are green, which means I already entered information in them. So once I submit my information for all of the rows, then I can go back to the home screen and I see other areas that I can enter information. If your program is asked to submit other reports, any other type of report specific to your contract that wasn't in the performance measures and is not one of the typical reports that we reviewed, you can go into the info desk. And here is where you'll upload any other reporting. So for example, if you're required to submit an annual report or anything else listed in the Exhibit C, that will go under contract documents. And you can use this upload button to find the file and upload it. Please do not upload anything to the public documents area and be sure to keep your uploads in the contract documents. I want to point out if you're uploading an Excel file, it must end in .xls, not XLSX. So that about covers all the different types of reports to submit in Persimmony. They're either going to go in performance measures for all the standard reports or in info desk for any specific reports for your contract. In this session, we covered how to upload many different types of reports, but I want you to keep in mind that your program may not necessarily be required to submit all of these different types. So please refer to your Exhibit C that's in your contract for a list and outline of what's required of your program. What's in your Exhibit C should have been covered today at some point, but just because we reviewed it today does not mean it's required of your program. I just wanted to review all the different types of reports that could be submitted. I hope you found this useful, and please feel free to contact First 5 if you have any further questions.